Step away from the mailboxes. Hands where I can see them. Now!
Officer, I'm not a suspect. I own this building. Those are master keys.
Yeah? Then you picked the wrong day. Drop the keys or you're going down.
You put hands on me without cause, and this ends your career. Choose carefully.
On the ground! Do it now!
The Sterling Heights is one of those pristine, gated communities that sits on the northern edge of Atlanta, tucked away behind iron fences and manicured magnolias. It represents safety, exclusivity, and success. The architecture is a blend of modern glass and traditional southern brick, designed to appeal to young executives and old money alike. It was 10:30 a.m. on a Wednesday in October. The Georgia sun was bright, casting long shadows across the marble floors of the main lobby. The morning rush of commuters had long since faded, leaving the complex in a quiet, golden hush. The only sounds were the distant hum of landscaping crews and the soft whir of the lobby's climate control. Marcus Thorne stood by the master mail bank, a wall of brushed steel boxes near the concierge desk. At 58 years old, Thorne cut an imposing figure. He stood 6'2", with the ramrod straight posture of a man who had spent 30 years in the United States Air Force. He kept his salt and pepper hair cut close, a habit from his military days, and he moved with a deliberate, efficient grace. On this particular morning, he was dressed in sight visit, casual pressed khaki trousers, a navy polo shirt with a small emblem on the chest, and clean leather loafers. He didn't look like a laborer, but he didn't look like a banker in a suit either. He looked like a man who was comfortable in his own skin. Thorne wasn't just a resident. He was the CEO of Thorne Development Group. He had purchased the land 5 years ago, navigated the zoning hearings, secured the financing, and overseen the construction of the Sterling Heights personally. Today, he was there for a specific, mundane reason. He had received reports of a faulty lock mechanism on the central mail panel, and rather than delegating it to a junior property manager, he decided to check it himself on his way to a luncheon. He held a large brass ring containing the master keys to the complex keys that opened every door, every gate, and every utility panel on the 4-acre property. For 10 minutes, Thorne worked quietly. He inserted a key, turned it, tested the tension, and made a note on his iPad. He was meticulous. He was focused. He was a man taking care of his investment. He spoke to no one, bothered no one, and obstructed no one. But in the ecosystem of the Sterling Heights, his presence was being watched. To one specific resident, a black man interacting with the mailboxes didn't look like maintenance or management. It looked like a crime in progress. And she was already dialing 911. Jessica Vance was 32 years old and had lived at the Sterling Heights for exactly 3 weeks. She worked in corporate public relations for a mid-sized logistics firm, a job that required her to manage narratives and protect brands from scandal. In her personal life, she applied that same rigorous scrutiny to her environment. She was the type of tenant who read the Homeowners Association bylaws on the first night and sent emails about trash bin placement by the second morning. She valued order. She valued security. And most of all, she valued the feeling that she was living in a curated community safe from the unpredictability of the outside world. Vance was heading to her car that morning, sunglasses on phone in hand, when she spotted Marcus Thorne through the glass doors of the lobby. She stopped in her tracks. In her mind, the narrative constructed itself instantly. She saw a black man she didn't recognize. She saw him fiddling with the master lock of the mailboxes. She saw him holding a large ring of keys that looked to her untrained eye like burglary tools or a stolen janitor's set. She didn't see the iPad. She didn't see the expensive loafers. She didn't see the calm focus of a professional. She saw a threat. The cognitive leap Jessica Vance made is common in these incidents. It's a shortcut the brain takes, fueled by stereotypes and media-fed fears. To her, a man like Thorne didn't fit the profile of a resident in a penthouse suite or a manager with authority. Therefore, he must be an outsider. And if he was an outsider manipulating locks, he must be criminal. She watched him for 30 seconds, her heart rate elevating, convinced she was witnessing a sophisticated mail theft ring in action. She retreated behind a decorative pillar near the parking garage entrance and keyed in 911. "Emergency, what is the location of your emergency?" the dispatcher asked. "I'm at the Sterling Heights apartments on Peachtree, Dunwoody." Vance whispered, her voice tight with self-imposed urgency. "There's a man in the lobby breaking into the mailboxes. He has a bunch of tools or keys and he's forcing the panels open." The dispatcher paused to type. "Is he armed? Is he threatening anyone?" "I don't see a gun, but he's acting very suspicious," Vance said. "He's looking around like he's checking for witnesses. He doesn't live here. I know the neighbors. He's definitely not a resident." "Can you describe him?" "He's a black male, older, maybe 50s, big guy. He's wearing, like, work pants and a dark shirt. He's digging into the main panel right now. You need to send someone before he steals everyone's identity. We've had packages go missing lately, and this has to be the guy." There had been no reports of missing packages at the Sterling Heights in 6 months. But in that moment, Vance connected invisible dots to justify her suspicion. She wasn't just reporting what she saw, she was reporting what she felt. And what she felt was ownership over the space, and ownership she believed Thorne was violating. The call was coded as a burglary in progress, priority 2. The description, "black male forcing locks, tools in hand," went out over the radio. It stripped away all the nuance of the scene. It turned Marcus Thorne from a property owner inspecting a defect into a predator attacking the community. Jessica Vance hung up the phone and waited, feeling a surge of civic pride. She believed she was protecting her neighbors. She had no idea she was about to ruin a young officer's life and help secure a massive payday for the man she was trying to get arrested. Officer Kyle Rourke heard the dispatch while he was idling at a red light 2 miles away. "Sterling Heights, male suspect tampering with mail units, forcing locks. Subject is a black male 50s large build." Rourke sat up straighter. This was exactly the kind of call he liked. Action, a clear bad guy, a chance to clean up the streets. Rourke had been with the department for 6 years, and in that time he had developed a reputation. To his friends on the force, he was proactive, a guy who didn't wait for permission to jump into the fray. But to the Internal Affairs Division and the community advocates, Rourke was a liability waiting to explode. His personnel file was a minefield of red flags. 9 complaints in 6 years. Most involved disrespect, excessive aggression, or profiling. There was the incident 2 years prior where he detained a landscaping crew for an hour because he thought their truck looked stolen. There was the time he tackled a college student who was running to catch a bus because he fit the description of a shoplifter. Wrong description, wrong guy, broken nose. In every instance, the police union stepped in. The wording of the reports was massaged, and Rourke was put back on the street with a slap on the wrist. He had learned that consequences were for other people, not for him. He was the law. As Rourke sped toward the Sterling Heights, his mind began to pre-visualize the arrest. He hated porch pirates and mail thieves. In his view, they were the lowest of the low, violating people's privacy. He decided before he even arrived that he wasn't going to give this guy a chance to run. He wasn't going to waste time with questions. He was going to dominate the scene. That was his training, or at least the version of training he chose to internalize. Dominate, control, neutralize. He didn't consider checking in with the leasing office. He didn't consider that the tools mentioned might be legitimate keys. He didn't check if there were maintenance scheduled. He trusted the dispatch, and by extension, he trusted the biased narrative of Jessica Vance. Rourke pulled his cruiser up to the curb of the Sterling Heights at 10:42 a.m., leaving the lights flashing but the siren off. He wanted the element of surprise. He adjusted his belt, checked his body camera, which was recording a fact that would later seal his fate, and strode toward the glass doors. He saw the figure by the mailboxes. Large black male, dark clothing, manipulation of the locks, visual confirmation. Rourke pushed through the double doors, the air conditioning hitting his face. He bypassed the concierge desk where a young woman named Sarah was on the phone. She looked up, startled, opening her mouth to speak, but Rourke was already moving past her eyes, locked on Marcus Thorne. Thorne was still looking at his iPad stylus in hand, making a note about the tension in the hinge. He was completely absorbed in his work, the posture of a man who has nothing to hide. He didn't hear the door open. He didn't see the officer approaching until the heavy boots echoed on the marble floor. "Police step away from the wall now." Rourke's voice boomed through the lobby, bouncing off the high ceilings. It wasn't a question. It wasn't an inquiry. It was an order given to a criminal. Rourke had skipped the investigation phase entirely. He had arrived at the conclusion, and now he was executing the sentence. Marcus Thorne did not flinch. 30 years in the military, including deployments to conflict zones, had given him a nervous system that didn't spike at sudden noises. He slowly lowered his stylus, turned his head, and looked at the young officer charging toward him. He saw the hand resting on the holster. He saw the vein throbbing in the officer's neck. He saw the lack of recognition in the man's eyes. "Excuse me," Thorne said, his voice a deep baritone, calm and leveled. He didn't step away from the wall. He turned his body fully to face Rourke, keeping his hands visible but not raised in surrender. He wasn't a suspect. He was a colonel. "I said step away from the boxes and put the tools down," Rourke shouted, closing the distance to within 10 feet. "Get your hands where I can see them." "Officer, these are keys," Thorne said, lifting the brass ring slightly to show him. "I am inspecting the property. I own this building." Rourke scoffed a sharp, dismissive sound that was picked up clearly by the body camera. "Yeah, right. And I own the Taj Mahal. Put the keys down now, or I will put you down." "Young man, you need to lower your voice and listen," Thorne said. He didn't shout back. He spoke with the authority of command. "My name is Marcus Thorne. I am the developer and owner of the Sterling Heights. If you go to that desk right there, the concierge can verify that." Rourke didn't look at the desk. He didn't look at Sarah, the concierge, who was now standing up, waving her hands frantically. Rourke had tunnel vision. The cognitive dissonance was too strong. A black man in work clothes claiming to own a multi-million-dollar complex impossible. The liar was trying to stall. "I'm not asking the concierge anything. I'm telling you to turn around," Rourke snapped. He stepped into Thorne's personal space, an aggressive maneuver designed to provoke a reaction. "We got a call. Guy forcing locks, that's you. You're caught. Don't make this worse." "The call was a mistake," Thorne said, his eyes narrowing slightly. He could see the nameplate on the officer's uniform, Rourke. He memorized it instantly. "Someone saw a black man with keys and got scared. That is not probable cause, Officer Rourke. I have identification in my back pocket. I am going to reach for it slowly." "Do not reach," Rourke screamed, his hand tightening on his weapon. "You reach, and it's going to be a bad day for you." "You are making a mistake that will cost you your badge," Thorne said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming colder. "Look at the keys. Look at the iPad. Does this look like a burglary to you?" "I don't care what it looks like to you," Rourke spat back. "It looks like a felony to me. Now, for the last time, turn around and put your hands behind your back. You are being detained for trespassing and possession of burglary tools." "Mo! Trespassing," Thorne repeated, a dry, incredulous chuckle escaping his lips. "I am standing on the deed to this land. I literally built the floor you are standing on." "Tell it to the judge," Rourke said. He reached out and grabbed Thorne's left wrist, yanking it forward. It was a violation of policy, of protocol, and of common sense. Rourke had initiated physical contact without verifying a single fact. Thorne didn't pull back, but he didn't go limp either. He stood like a statue, his muscles tense but controlled. "Unhand me," Thorne said. "I am a retired colonel in the United States Air Force. I am the owner of this property. If you put handcuffs on me, you are violating my Fourth Amendment rights, and I will sue this city into the ground." "Resisting!" Rourke yelled for the camera, trying to create a legal justification where there was none. "Stop resisting!" The scene in the lobby had shifted from a misunderstanding to a spectacle. The shouting had drawn attention. The elevator doors opened and a couple walked out, freezing when they saw the confrontation. The concierge, Sarah, was now coming around the desk, shouting, "Officer, stop! That's Mr. Thorne! He owns the building!" Rourke didn't hear her, or rather he chose not to hear her. In the adrenaline-fueled echo chamber of his mind, anyone interfering was an accomplice or a distraction. He was fixated on the suspect who dared to talk back to him. "I am not resisting," Thorne said, clearly speaking as much to the witnesses as to Rourke. "I am standing still. You are the one applying force." Rourke, frustrated by Thorne's lack of submission, escalated. He released Thorne's wrist and drew his taser, the yellow plastic weapon pointing squarely at Thorne's chest. The red laser dot danced on the navy polo shirt. "Get on the ground!" Rourke screamed. "On your stomach now or you're gonna get tased!" Thorne looked at the taser, then back at Rourke's face. He realized that this young man was terrified and incompetent, a dangerous combination. If Thorne moved too fast, he might get shot. If he argued, he might get tased. The calculus of survival took over. "I am complying under duress," Thorne announced loudly. "I am lowering myself to the ground for my own safety." Slowly, with dignified movements that highlighted the absurdity of the situation, the 58-year-old business mogul went down to one knee, then the other, and finally lay prone on the cold marble floor he had paid to install. He placed his hands behind his back. Rourke holstered the taser and practically jumped on Thorne's back, driving a knee into his spine. He grabbed Thorne's wrists and slapped the handcuffs on tight. The metal ratcheted shut with a sound that signaled the end of Rourke's career, though he didn't know it yet. "You're under arrest." Rourke panted, sweat beading on his forehead. By now, the lobby was filling up. 2 members of the maintenance staff, Carlos and David, had run in from the courtyard. They stopped, dead horror on their faces. "Hey!" Carlos shouted, dropping his rake. "What are you doing? That's the boss. That's Mr. Thorne." "Back up!" Rourke yelled over his shoulder. "Back up or you're next." "You're arresting the landlord, you idiot!" David yelled, pulling out his phone to record. "He owns the whole complex." Jessica Vance. The caller had wandered back toward the lobby to see the result of her vigilance. She stood near the glass doors, watching. She saw the burglar on the ground. She saw the maintenance staff shouting. For the first time, a seed of doubt began to sprout in her stomach. Why were the workers defending him? Rourke hauled Thorne to his feet. Thorne's clothes were dusted with lint from the floor. His face was stoic, but his eyes were burning with a cold, focused fury. "Officer," Thorne said, his voice low. "Check my back pocket. My wallet is there. My ID is there." "We'll check it at the station," Rourke said, shoving him toward the door. "You're done talking." "No," Thorne said. "I'm just getting started." As Rourke marched him out the front doors, past the shocked residents and the recording phones, Thorne looked directly at the camera lens of the maintenance worker. He didn't look like a criminal. He looked like a man who was already planning the deposition. "Do you think officers should be required to verify ID before using physical force in nonviolent situations? Let us know in the comments below." The walk to the patrol car was a gauntlet of shame, not for Thorne but for the department, though Rourke was too dense to feel it yet. Residents who knew Thorne were stepping out onto their balconies. A woman in a jogging suit yelled from the second floor, Marcus, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Brenda," Thorne called back, his voice steady despite the handcuffs biting into his wrists. "Call my attorney. Tell him I've been arrested for trespassing on my own property." Rourke shoved Thorne into the back of the cruiser. The plastic seat was hard and smelled of stale sweat and disinfectant. Thorne maneuvered his large frame into the cramped space. He had ridden in military transport planes and Humvees. He could handle a Ford Explorer. But the indignity of it, the sheer stupid injustice, gnawed at him. Rourke got into the driver's seat and slammed the door. He felt a rush of dopamine. He had secured the scene. He had the bad guy. He radioed in. "Dispatch 1 in custody. Transporting to Precinct 4. "Copy 1 in custody." Dispatch crackled back. As they pulled away from the Sterling Heights, Rourke glanced in the rearview mirror. "You know, if you'd just cooperated, this would have gone easier," he said, trying to justify the adrenaline still shaking his hands. "You people always want to make a scene." "You people," Thorne repeated softly. He looked out the window at the passing trees. "You have no idea who is sitting in your car, do you, son?" "I know you're a guy who doesn't know when to shut up," Rourke said, turning up the radio to drown out any further conversation. Thorne fell silent. He closed his eyes and began to organize the facts. Time of arrest, 10:48 a.m. Location 4000, block of Peachtree Dunwoody. Officer name, Kyle Rourke. Badge number observed 492. Charges stated, trespassing, possession of burglary tools, resisting. Evidence ignored. Master Key's iPad witness testimony from concierge. Witness testimony from maintenance staff. It was a slam dunk. It was a civil rights attorney's dream. But Thorne wasn't just thinking about the money. He was thinking about the humiliation. He was thinking about how he, a man who had served his country for 3 decades, a man who created jobs and housing, could be reduced to a suspect in seconds, simply because he was black and holding a keychain. The drive to the station took 15 minutes. Rourke spent it fantasizing about the commendation he might get for busting a mail theft ring. Thorne spent it calculating the net worth of the police department's insurance policy. When they pulled into the precinct Sally Port, the automatic garage door rumbled shut behind them, sealing them in the concrete intake area. Rourke got out and opened the back door. "Let's go," he said. "Watch your head." He guided Thorne out of the car. Thorne stood tall, shaking out his legs. He walked ahead of Rourke through the heavy steel doors into the booking area. The smell of the station was familiar coffee floor wax and misery. They walked past the holding cells and up to the intake desk. The desk sergeant was a man named Miller, a 20-year veteran who had seen it all. He was typing on a computer, looking bored. "What do we have, Rourke?" Miller asked, without looking up. "Trespassing, burglary tools, resisting," Rourke said proudly. "Caught him prying open mailboxes at the Sterling Heights." Miller stopped typing. He looked up. His eyes landed on Marcus Thorne. He blinked. He looked closer. Then his face drained of all color. Miller stood up so fast his chair rolled back and hit the wall. "Colonel Thorne." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Rourke looked between Miller and Thorne, a frown creasing his brow. "You know this guy?" Miller ignored Rourke. He came around the desk, his hands raised in a gesture of panic and apology. "Colonel, I don't understand. What are you doing in cuffs?" "Ask Officer Rourke," Thorne said calmly. "He seems to think I was robbing my own building." Miller turned to Rourke. The look on the sergeant's face was not one of camaraderie. It was the look of a man watching a train wreck in slow motion. "Rourke, do you know who this is?" "Yeah, the suspect," Rourke said, though his voice wavered for the first time. "He claimed he owned the place, but—" "He does own the place, you moron!" Miller shouted. The sound echoed through the intake room. "This is Colonel Marcus Thorne. He's on the Police Foundation Board. He just donated the funds for the new K-9 unit training center." Rourke felt the blood leave his head. His stomach dropped through the floor. The world tilted on its axis. The man in the work clothes. The man with the keys. The man he had threatened to tase. The caller said. Rourke stammered. "Uncuff him," Miller barked. "Now." Rourke fumbled for his keys. His hands were shaking so badly he couldn't get the key into the slot. Miller shoved him aside, grabbed his own keys, and unlocked the handcuffs. Thorne rubbed his wrists. There were deep red indentations where the metal had dug in. He looked at them, then at Rourke. "You have the right to remain silent," Thorne said to Rourke. "I suggest you use it." At that moment, the door to the back offices swung open. Lieutenant Commander Harris walked out holding a coffee mug. He was the watch commander for the shift. He saw the commotion. He saw Miller pale and sweating. He saw Kyle Rourke looking like he was about to vomit. And then he saw Marcus Thorne standing by the booking desk. "Marcus," Harris said, his jaw dropping. "What the hell is going on? We're supposed to have lunch next week, not... What is this?" "Hello, Jim," Thorne said. "Your officer here arrested me for checking the mail at the Sterling Heights. He refused to look at my ID. He threatened to tase me. He kneed me in the back." Harris turned slowly to Rourke. The air in the room grew freezing cold. Harris was a fair man, but he was also a political creature. He knew exactly what this meant. He knew who Thorne was. He knew the media storm that was about to hit. "Rourke," Harris said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Did you verify ownership? Did you speak to management?" There was a witness. A 911 call," Rourke whispered. "Did you verify?" Harris roared. "No, sir." Harris closed his eyes for a second. "Give me your badge. Give me your gun. You are relieved of duty pending an immediate internal investigation." Rourke unbuckled his belt. He placed the gun and the badge on the counter. He looked small. He looked young. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who had let bias do his thinking for him. "Colonel, I am so sorry," Harris said, turning back to Thorne. "We will drive you back immediately. We will—" "I don't want to ride," Thorne said. "My lawyer is already on his way. I'll wait for him here. I want everything documented, every minute, every word." He looked at Rourke one last time. "You had every chance, son. I told you. The concierge told you. The maintenance staff told you. You just couldn't see past your own prejudice, and now we all have to pay for it." The fallout was swift, brutal, and public. The body camera footage was released within 48 hours, demanded by Thorne's legal team. It went viral instantly. The image of the distinguished older man kneeling on the marble floor of his own lobby while a 29-year-old officer screamed at him became a symbol of everything wrong with modern policing. The investigation into Officer Kyle Rourke was short. The violations were too numerous and too documented to ignore. Failure to investigate, unlawful arrest, excessive force, violation of department policy on de-escalation. But the core of the report focused on the bias. Rourke had assumed guilt based on appearance and location. He was terminated 3 weeks later. The police union, usually so vocal in defense of its members, remained notably silent. They knew this was indefensible. Jessica Vance, the woman who made the call, faced her own reckoning. While she wasn't charged criminally, proving she knowingly lied is difficult, the social consequences were severe. The recording of her 911 call was leaked. Her employer, the logistics firm, fired her for conduct incompatible with company values. Furthermore, Thorne Development Group issued her an eviction notice for violation of the lease agreement regarding harassment of other residents and the owner. She was given 30 days to leave the Sterling Heights. She moved back to Ohio, her reputation in Atlanta in tatters. The lawsuit against the city took 6 months. Thorne didn't just sue for damages, he sued for policy change. The settlement was reached at $6.5 million, one of the largest in the city's history for a wrongful arrest of this nature. But Thorne didn't keep the money. In a final move that cemented his legacy, he donated the entire amount to a legal defense fund for indigent defendants and a scholarship program for minority youth entering law enforcement. "I don't need the city's money," Thorne said in a press conference outside the courthouse. "I need the city's respect, and I need to know that the next time a young black man is standing in a lobby with a key in his hand, the officer who walks in sees a citizen, not a suspect. The story of Marcus Thorne serves as a stark reminder that success, wealth, and status are not shields against racism. Bias does not check your bank account before it judges you. It does not ask for your resume. It sees what it wants to see. We live in a world where safety is often used as a code word for exclusion. Jessica Vance thought she was keeping her community safe. Officer Rourke thought he was catching a thief. But in reality, they were the ones introducing danger into a peaceful space. They were the ones who turned a quiet Wednesday morning into a crime scene. As we move forward, we have to ask ourselves, what does a criminal look like? And why does that image so often look like someone who is simply existing while black? Until we can answer that question with honesty and change the answer, stories like this will continue to happen. The complex is quiet again now. The mailboxes are fixed. But the memory of that day lingers in the lobby of the Sterling Heights, a ghost of injustice that money can't quite exorcise. What do you think needs to change in police training to prevent this? Should 911 callers face legal penalties for biased reporting? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.